Good day, everyone. So today we'll be discussing unmasking meanings, a critique of select multimodal text during the COVID-19 pandemic. My name is Vincent Josh Borja, and together with me is my partner, Carlos Limpo. We're both from 1AB Economics, and we're going to be presenting to you an example of multimodal text that we found interesting in relation to COVID-19 pandemic. Next slide.
Okay.
So here's the overview of our presentation. Our presentation will go, firstly, we'll analyze the context and the surrounding background information behind the chosen multimodal text. And of course, the purpose and the intended meaning of that multimodal text from the perspective of the sign maker. Second, we'll also discuss the possible interpretations from the audience's perspective, how the multimodality of the text impacts the message of the text itself, like how we analyze it in terms of verbal, written, and contextual multimodality. And of course, we also have lastly, how it could be improved and how we could avoid misinterpretations of the multimodal text that we'll be showing you, as well as some overall realizations. So I'll be handing over to Carlos to discuss what our multimodal text is.
Okay, so what's the ad about? The multimodal text is on this photograph of a truck advertisement that circulated on social media in late 2021. The advertisement consists of a short slogan saying, "Don't get vaccinated," and appears to be from a funeral home service truck in the United States called Wilmore Funeral Homes. The truck was driving around downtown Charlotte, North Carolina, during a football game in the city on September 19, 2021.
Okay. Thank you, Carlos. So the context around this ad of "don't get vaccinated" is obviously the COVID-19 pandemic. So it was an advertisement that was ran by the company on September 2021 during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. So the Omicron variant was still underage in the United States, especially. So there were millions of cases and many deaths in the United States at this period. So it's a very contentious topic. But also, it just came weeks after one of the major announcements with regards to vaccines in the United States. So since this is an ad that we saw in the United States, it's important to consider the context behind the vaccinations efforts in the US during this time. So this ad was prominent when people were still questioning whether to get the vaccine or whether parang they were in the middle of being vaccinated en masse. So that was the government policy back then. So we can put that into perspective in analyzing this advertisement. But secondly, another context of the advertisement, next slide, is the misinformation and anti-vaxxer sentiment. So since this is a very contentious topic, like I said, the viral advertisement was also it was seen by many people, especially those who were increasingly worried about COVID-19 vaccines. And it was a polarizing time in America, especially for those who don't want to get vaccinated, those who are victims of misinformation and conspiracy theories online and in social media, who keeps espousing the belief that COVID-19 vaccines are somehow harmful or would cause autism and all that. So many individuals and groups using these platforms promoted these unscientific claims. So we can see na parang this truck was obviously advancing a message of something related to vaccines. But the big twist there, according to our research, previous slide, Carlos, was that this truck, so this truck was actually not from a Wilmer Funeral Home. So the Wilmer Funeral Homes was just a parang covert a way to hide the original advertiser, which is StarMed Healthcare. So StarMed Healthcare was the original company, a healthcare provider in the United States, who was actually running the ad behind the scenes. So it was not a real funeral service, but rather a healthcare provider in the local city of Charlotte. And the advertisement was commissioned as part of their marketing agency. So again, these are healthcare providers with the interest of getting people vaccinated and availing their own services. So in relation to that, we can understand the true purpose of these multimodal texts. Next slide. The purpose of the multimodal text we presented to you is one, of course, to support vaccines. Because we'll elaborate on how this message is carried out later on. But overall, the message is to encourage people to get vaccinated, to essentially scare them into vaccination. So the advertisement's multimodality and the use of irony in conveying its message is likely the primary way that it tacitly encourages people to get their vaccines. But secondly, since this is a healthcare provider behind the scenes, so another purpose of the advertisement we saw is to generate awareness and exposure for design maker. Of course, apparently there was a link in that in that advertisement that doesn't lead to Wilmer Funeral Homes, but actually leads to StarMed's website. So we'll discuss this later in the multimodality of the text. But yeah, so StarMed was more motivated by the business aspect of marketing their services, marketing their vaccines to the greater public, and gain visibility, especially in social media. So next slide. We can see that this entire purpose of the ad falls under guerrilla marketing, which is an effective marketing strategy that relies on unconventional methods to create an impactful message. So in this case, the attention-grabbing slogan of "Don't get vaccinated" and the entire idea about it being a funeral home making this announcement creates a shock factor in people, and that makes it disturbing, which also makes people curious and make them want to know more about that specific campaign or whatever, and they'll likely be visiting the link, and then that link will lead them to for vaccine provider. So that's the interesting part in the purpose of this text. So yeah, of course this would have a target audience, and Carlos will be discussing how it is interpreted by different people. Go, Carlos.
Okay, so the truck advertisement was likely aimed at the general population, but with a focus on the unvaccinated, of course, as the message is clear that the StarMed wanted more locals to get vaccinated. StarMed's firm later also shared a photo on the truck on Twitter around September 21 and wrote, "It was us. So get vaccinated. It was us, get vaccinated." With the top executive saying that if the advertisement could get one person vaccinated, it was worth every penny he paid for on the billboard. However, due to the advertisement gaining traction on social media, the ad expanded beyond the locals onto the outsiders and netizens on social media platforms. For the vast majority of people, they shared the ad thinking it was legitimate and legitimate funeral home, and shared it as a funny meme to friends or but it was also they sent it to encourage vaccinations with their friends and families. However, there were also mixed reactions from those who pushed back, saying that it was wrong for a funeral company to profit off the pandemic. The multimodality in the text can be divided into three parts: the written, the visual, and the contextual. The written, the ad's slogan, the rhetorical strategies behind it, its underlying message, and how this shapes how the ad is intended to be read by the people. For the visual, the careful and creative use of the color, style, and themes to project meaning beyond the text itself to convey an unwritten message from the ad. And the contextual, the time, place, and current events surrounding the text, and how the ad relies on the context of COVID-19 pandemic to make its point. So the written elements. On the verbal/written elements, the use of the slogans "Don't get vaccinated" on the truck employs reverse psychology and implies that not getting vaccinated could lead to negative consequences, such as illnesses or death. The advertisement also creates an association between not going to get vaccinated as a negative outcome suggested by the funeral services. In terms of the message, in terms of the message of the text, the advertisement also uses satire, which is a form of humor that criticizes or exposes something by exaggerating or ridiculing it. The advertisement further mocks the anti-vaxxers' sentiments by showing its absurdity and consequences, implying the funeral homes benefit from people not getting vaccinated, as they will have more customers who die from COVID-19. On a more subtle note, though, the advertisement also used a link to the supposed funeral home's website to make it seem more authentic and credible. Visiting the link, however, would just lead you to the healthcare's provider. And for the visual elements, the text itself consists of a short slogan, "Don't get vaccinated," presented in bold title. So the logo is actually just printed on the back of a black truck. So it really stands out and really comes at you. The text itself is in the typography of a simple yet very eerie style of font, such as that you'll see on a gravestone or a casket, evoking the fear and illusion of death. Furthermore, the use of white colors on the logo and lettering adds a stark contrast against the black background, creating an ominous and emphasizing message. For the contextual, I'll hand it over to Zen.
Right, thanks, Carlos. So for the contextual element, so this is with regards to the elements that we don't see on the truck itself, but is relevant because it relates to the time and the place and the setting and the background of what the ad is and where it's located. So this is also part of its multimodality. So as seen from the location of the photo in North Carolina in the United States, it relies on the context of the mass vaccination effort and the low vaccination rates in the southern part of the United States, especially in Republican states like North Carolina, in order to push for vaccination in the region. These states are most commonly the states that do have much opposition to vaccines because they think that the federal government is encroaching on their rights, so they're less likely to get vaccinated themselves. But also, its prominence in its prominence in Charlotte on a Sunday in September 2021, when many people were going to watch a football game, suggests that it's the target audience was actually the sports fans who are okay who are like comfortable with going to large crowds unmasked and where many people are gathered in close proximity without mask or social distancing. So these were the unvaccinated, unafraid people of COVID-19 that they were targeting in the first place. And these audiences, the context of these audiences already play into the part of the meaning of understanding this Chuck's message. So these audiences have already been hesitant to getting themselves vaccinated. And thus, it shows that the ad was intended to be provocative and controversial, especially for these unvaccinated populations. So it was intended for their viewing. It was intended for them to read that and essentially make up that meaning that they should get vaccinated or less be in the subject of a funeral service or have the need for funeral services. But moreover, its prominence in social media platforms as a funny meme related to the COVID-19 pandemic, especially in Twitter or in Reddit, helps in highlighting the sarcasm and irony. By seeing that kind of message in these meme boards or in these popular social media sites, parang it would give the intended meaning that this is something that is sarcastic and that it's meant to be shared, that sharing it online has the intention of getting laughs and encouraging people to get vaccinated by doing so. So that's the main context, the contextual multimodality around the text. But of course, the differing contexts and the differing ways people interpret what they see means that this is open to misinterpretation and that no multimodal text is perfect in conveying its message. So one, there's a possibility that people will take it at face value. While the fake advertisement was meant to be a tongue-in-cheek commentary on the importance of vaccination, it would still be interpreted by some as discouraging. Some would literally take the idea that you're not being told to get vaccinated. For those who take this at face value, that would be the message they're getting. Don't get vaccinated. And they'll believe that. But secondly, in the perspective of anti-vaxxers who are already hostile to the idea of getting themselves vaccinated, the ad's underlying message of get vaccinated or die is probably a provocative measure that will highly make them more or embolden them to become further skeptical or become further antagonistic or hostile to the idea of big pharma telling them what to do. So in the United States, it's a very contentious issue because they really believe in their individualism and their bodily rights. So in addition to in that perspective, we can see that how the ad can play in their minds by putting ourselves in their shoes. We can see how this can be easily interpreted by them as yet another way of these large companies like StarMed controlling their bodies and forcing them to get vaccinated. Of course, that's not the intended message, but that's a possible misinterpretation. Of course, there are ways to avoid this possible misinterpretations, and Carlos will explain how that can be achieved.
So improving its multimodality. The ad spot, you can make the ad more positive and factual, and adding more factual information about the benefits of vaccination, such as statistics, testimonies, or endorsements from credible sources once audience visit the link. This could balance out the negative and ironic tone of the slogan and the truck, and provide some evidence and reason for why people should get vaccinated. Okay. The ad also signals to better highlight the sarcasm conveyed in the text for people who might be slower in interpreting the humor behind the message. This can be achieved by putting a clarification such as "just kidding" or "just kidding" or well, this is obviously sarcasm. So those are possible ways that we can improve this multimodality by adding maybe just a kicker on the end saying, by the way, this is a joke, or just to clarify to people who might take it at face value.
That's right. So overall, that's what we learned from this multimodal text discussion. So the advertisement of StarMed Healthcare under the guise of Wilmore Funeral Homes, while witty and very ironic at face value or when we take it as a whole, is just a persuasive and ironic message about the importance of getting vaccinated about COVID-19, against COVID-19. Through this example, we also realize how the many different factors that aren't written or aren't on the text itself can influence the meaning conveyed by it. So in this case, we saw how contextual and other elements that are in relation to the setting and the time where these advertisements can be found can also influence and convey the message just as effectively as the color and the style choices of those who were responsible for this advertisement. Lastly, we saw in this example how multimodal text can be effective tools for carrying messages that are sometimes political, sometimes just an announcement to get yourself vaccinated. And it's an effective way to get people talking and to get people pushing for awareness, especially important matters such as getting your COVID-19 vaccine and reaching a wide range of people. So with that all, we wrap up this presentation and thank you for listening.
Okay. Thank you.
Again, thank you for listening. Once again, I'm Vincent Josh Bora and this is Carlos Limpo. And this is our presentation, Unmasking Meanings.